Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to the latest edition Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called The Cost of Ending War, written by TRMerc. Princess Rolera fell into a seated position on the floor as a steward was positioned next to her. The other soldiers who were captured from the team she had been leading were behind. "Madam, I want to speak to your leader," growled the Carbathac princess as the humans walked about, almost gloating at their catch. "You'll get your chance. I gotta make some calls first," came a voice from behind view. The older Carbathac next to her, Feck, cleared his throat to get the princess's attention. "You know, princess, now that we are captured," to which Rolaria interjected, "I wouldn't have been if you had done your duty," making the older Carbathac pause in annoyance. "There were too many between me and you for me to have carried out that duty. I have to now follow the rules for that." The princess froze for a moment. "You can't be serious, Sarvik." Sarvik nods without looking at the princess, instead looking for the man he saw fighting with her. "Our culture is built upon tradition, even one she might not wish to be a part of. You were beaten in single combat by a male," the princess interjects. "Not true. 2 of our soldiers were fighting with me," to which Sarvik nods, which makes it an even more impressive feat. He gets a growl of annoyance in return. A human woman walked over, hearing them talk. "What's going on over here?" Sitting down on a crate in front of the prisoners, Sarvik looked at the human. Maybe you can help." "Who was the one by himself during the fight?" Sitting up, the human smiled. "That would be our fearless leader. Didn't want anyone to risk their life, as our formation required 4 in the front of you." Rolaria sneered. "You mean your trap?" The human gasped at the accusation, placing her hand on her chest in mock surprise. "Just because your senses were not keen enough to notice us doesn't mean that it was a trap. We even called out for you to surrender, as you were surrounded, and you chose to fight." Getting a nod of agreement from the steward, who got an elbow for agreeing with the human, causing a grunt of pain. That spot is a little tender from the fight," which got another one from the princess. "That is your failure in duty." The human woman pointed a finger at the pair as if they were children. "Don't make me separate you two. So, you were speaking earlier?" And Sarvik nods. "Does your leader come from a noble bloodline?" Which made the human smirk. "He would say he does," before taking a moment to pose and take a mock tone of a ragtag group's leader. "My grandfather would tell me stories of how we were descendants of Spartan kings over 4,000 years ago." Getting a laugh from the woman and a nod from Sarvik. "Is there any possibility that is true?" And the human shrugged. "Could be. It was a long time ago, and I remember hearing something about how everyone is related to royalty in some way or another because of mixing." Rolaria smiles. "See, his bloodline is too diluted. Also, I never heard of Spartans, so how much of a warrior family could they be?" Getting another laugh from the woman. "They weren't a family. They were an entire culture who just became part of a country known as Greece. They never died out or went extinct. They just started calling themselves Greeks instead of Spartans." Looking back and forth between the two, Sarah started to smile more as she realized what the conversation had been about. Sarvik nodded in understanding. "I see. What were these beliefs of these Spartans?" Causing the human to think for a while. "Well, I remember hearing the only way to get your name on a grave is for men to have died in battle, or women to have died during childbirth. Both were seen as a way of supporting Sparta. They were fierce warriors. Often just a single word could keep an army out of a country. Oh, and the marriage was some kind of ritualistic combat, I think." By this time, Nick walked over. "What is all this commotion?" He looked around at the giggling Sarah, the stoic-looking male Carbathac, and what he could only assume to be a blushing female Carbathac. Sarah looked up. "Oh, just talking about Spartan marriage fighting." To which Nick sighed. "It wasn't combat. Spartan men would meet up with the woman they found attractive during the night and take them back to their barracks or someplace else." Sarvik tilted his head some. "Do you believe Rolaria to be attractive?" getting a wide-eyed look from the princess. Sarvek, you stop this right now. The human male looked confused and looked over. To be honest, I never really thought of the Karbathak as beautiful or not, but I mean, if we weren't at war, maybe? Kinda? Sarvek nodded once more. Then it is settled. The combat took place at night, and it seems that all the conditions for both cultures are met, or at least enough to be considered valid under the mixed cultures doctrine. Nick looked even more confused as he looked at the male Karbathak. Then the female who looked ready to die from embarrassment, and his second-in-command, Sarah, who looked ready to burst from laughter, and when he remembered what they were talking about, marriage, he got his own look of shock and horror. No. Sarvek nods. You are to be paired with the Princess Relaria, which was what Sarah needed to hear to burst out laughing. Finally, and almost fell off the crate. The whole thing caused everyone to look over, prisoner and none alike. Relaria. You're in agreement there, human. There is no way this is going to happen. Sarvek took a deep breath. I'm afraid as steward of the royal family, it is my duty to inform your father. Nick shook his head. No, there is no way I can marry a furball. Sarah, for her part, finally fell to the floor before managing to get something out that wasn't laughter. Bum, 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 bum. To the tune of Here Comes the Bride, getting a kick from Nick, which only returned her to a crazed laughing state, which by now, more people started figuring out what was going on, and some more laughter started. Only one from the Karbathak. Relaria turned to look at which one of her soldiers was laughing. Whoever is laughing is going to have their tongue cut out. Before turning to Nick, if we kill Sarvek, no one will tell. To which Sarah's hand shot up. I will. And Sarvek nods. We have a second in agreement from the groom's side. We just have to contact your father. He will agree to the ceasefire the humans have been asking for. Nick looks down. We will have to kill more than a Sarvek. When a cough from behind caught his attention, causing Nick to look back. Command finally answered. Nick took a deep breath and pointed a finger at the Karbathaks. No speaking, and then pointed at Sarah. Put it together. As the now out-of-breath woman took a deep breath to get it back. Okay, okay, I'm done now. Nick walked over and answered the line, talking about the success in capturing a high-value target in the area and how it was the princess. After a few minutes of talking, Nick returned with a different look on his face, and Sarah wiped her eyes, having cried from laughing so hard. Oh, I don't think I can survive another laughing fit like that. It was too funny. Nick took a deep breath, causing Sarah to look up in amused horror as Nick spoke. Command told me to contact the Karbathaks and use any means necessary to get them to agree to a ceasefire. And Sarah smirked while holding her laughter and got slapped upside the head for it. She screamed in pain. Ah! What was that for? And Nick smiled. You said if you started laughing you were going to die. I just saved your life. Taking a deep breath, Sarah nods. I guess, but you could have held back. Relaria's embarrassment died down enough that she started to glare at Nick. If you think for a second I will marry you, I would rather die. Nick held a finger up and bopped Relaria on the nose to silence her. Not getting married, turned to Sarvek. Going to get Tony to agree to a ceasefire anyway. And then turned to Sarah. Someone is getting a demotion, to which she replied, worth it. Nick sighed and walked away to a secluded area he and Sarah would talk, and Sarah started to follow. Though I am in agreement with killing the princess, it'll be nice revenge for everything the furballs have done to us since the war started. A hand going to her sidearm, Nick turned to her. Put it away. I don't like the idea either. It could at least be enough of a distraction to get the upper hand or get some end of this war. Sarah looked at him seriously for the first time since starting the conversation with the aliens. Nick nods. You have a weird way of grieving, you know that. Your humor was bad before, but this is twisted. No, we are not going to plan a red wedding. We'll use it as a cover to regroup and... Sarah groaned out of frustration. Why are we even listening to the human collation? They abandoned us. And when our resistance group got good enough, they contacted us and started demanding we followed their orders. Nick nods. Yeah. Not like they started giving us intel, equipment, trained soldiers, causing Sarah to stop him. Okay. You made your point. Still, marriage? Nick shrugs at that. When we started fighting, I thought about how men used to throw themselves on grenades to save others. I've always been ready to do that. I guess to save lives, I'll have to take an arrow to the knee. Before starting to walk back in, a smile returned to Sarah's face without turning. Nick simply said, "Knew that would get that cursed smile back." The two Carpathaks had been arguing again, with the princess drowning out the steward whenever he tried to give the transmission frequency to contact the king. Nick picked up a clean-ish rag and shoved it into the princess's mouth. "All right, fine, I accept." Getting a muffled scream of anger from the princess, followed by what was surely an obscenity-filled tongue-lashing. Defeated by a rag. Sarvak looked at Nick, angry for the first time. "We might be your prisoners, but that is no way to treat the princess or your future wife." Nick nods some. "Would you like me to remove it and risk going deaf in that ear?" Pointing to the one that was on the side of the princess. A momentary glance from Sarvak at the princess, who was still trying to yell between attempts to remove the rag stuck in her sharp teeth, got a, "For now. The signal frequency is 195.2515.234.202. Also, I would refrain from using your human slur for our leader. He doesn't like much being compared to a human breakfast cereal mascot." Nick nods and helps Sarvak to his feet and turns to Sarah. "I could use my second in command." He gets a sigh of annoyance as she rebuttons the strap holding his sidearm while standing. "Okay." After approaching the comms, the operator puts in the frequency and releasing Sarvak's hands, he taps in a code as the image of the kings of the Carpathaks comes on with a roar of a statement. "How dare you lay a hand on my daughter? If she's not returned to me within an Earth hour, I will glass the planet, as I would rather see her dead than at the mercy of you lowly." As Nick decided to throw him off his game. "Calm down, Dad," causing the king to stop. "What did you call me? And why is Sarvak standing next to you?" Sarvak coughed to grab the attention of the group, and to make this more noble than commoner. "It is with much honor and regret that I have to inform you that this human has successfully completed the rite of binding." This information caused the king's lower jaw to drop, and Sarah chimed in. "Funny, you mentioned hand earlier because he's taking your daughter's hand in marriage." The king looked outraged. "You're going to cut her hand off for marriage?" And Sarvak raised a hand. "It's a figure of speech, Your Majesty. Humans call grabbing another's hand with your own taking. Often done before the rings are placed on the hand of the one being wed." Nick and Sarah both turned to look at Sarvak, who doesn't turn his head. "A steward must be informed on all relevant information." Nick turns back to the king. "As your future son-in-law, I ask that you have your forces stand down. Don't want to accidentally kill a relative of mine, do you?" The king let out a low growl of annoyance as a spitting sound was heard behind the group. The princess finally worked the rag out of her mouth. "I object to the wedding," only getting in a yell in response. "I can't stop it. If Sarvak has said the terms have been met, I would have to break years of tradition and condemn our bloodline to death to break it." The two humans went wide-eyed as they didn't realize how seriously the Carpathaks took their tradition. Turning his head, the king spoke solemnly. "Tell the generals to stand down and to return fire if fired upon." The comms operator relayed the message to the human command, which quickly ordered a similar command. Turning back, the king looked like he was about ready to reach through the screen and strangle him. "Know this, human. If you've lied about your intent, I was originally planning on subjugating the humans, but I will exterminate your species if you are lying." At the sudden realization that his plan of using this as a cover for the human forces to regroup was a bigger gamble than he first thought. Sarah smirked and turned to look up at Nick. No pressure. End of story. I would just like to thank the T5 supporters: Bushmaster117, Casper Arnholtz, Draxzoon WRE, Elijah Silvercross, Gray, John Carrington, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.